Yo, welcome back to another Mailbag Monday. You are listening to the Money Matters podcast. I'm your host, Jack. I am joined by my dad, Bill. Dad, how are you?
Great. I'm great. Thanks, guys.
Happy Father's Day. So it is Monday, but the best dad in the whole world. If you guys are thankful for anything that I've ever done for Bitcoin, all the credit goes to my dad. He's the one that got me into Bitcoin, and I don't know where I'd be without him. So I've already told him as much, but I love him to death. He's the best dad in the world, and Simon Close. So financial cypherpunk is the way I describe him. He doesn't know how to code, but the cypherpunk attitude from the finance angle. So happy Bitcoin Father's Day, Dad.
Thanks. Thanks, Dylan.
Of course. Dill, how are you? Sorry. Wait. I'm also joined by my best friend, Dylan. Dylan, how are you?
What's going on, guys? Happy to be back in America, and happy Father's Day, Bill.
Thank you.
Yes, we are back in America. I'm back in the closet. Everyone in Europe was like, is that room real? It is real. Dylan and I are a little jet lagged, and we honestly don't have too many topics. Brooke can't join us today, and we figured for like a Europe recap, we wanted to wait for Brooke. The Bitcoin price is making some moves, so we'll have Dollar Bill. But outside of that, this might be a little bit of a lighter episode, although we will see. You never know. So with that, Dad, do you want to kick off Dollar Bill, the price action? We're at 66,000 as of recording. What's going on, BTC USD?
We are at 66,000, and as I'm going to pretty much repeat, this market is pretty much the definition of range bound, right? It, as when I spoke to you guys last, well, like I was just showing you, Bitcoin has ranged between the last time it was below 50 was February. It's pretty much ranged 60 to 70 for, 3 months plus. That's I think that this market probably has as close to a bullish consensus since I've been trading it, right? It is, what I mean by that, is remember when you first started trading Bitcoin like 10 years ago, the New York Times actually ran an op-ed that was titled "Bitcoin is Evil," and I believe quoted a guy that predicted it was going to trade at less than zero. Right? So now, whether it's Fidelity, ETF, Larry Fink, nation state, adoption, El Salvador's success story, there's just a lot of positive. And markets just have a hard time accommodating a consensus positive opinion. Like I say, I'll overuse my crowded elevator analogy, but anybody who works in a high rise know there's two ways to get people off a crowded elevator. You either wear them out or scare them out. If you do nothing, after about 60 seconds, they'll get tired of hitting the buttons and they'll take the stairs, or just drop the bottom out for about 8 or 10 feet, and that's good. I'm going to take the stairs. Market's similar. I think this market, as you know, is not immune from China bans Bitcoin, bang, 80%. I mean, as you know, we've traded Bitcoin from 20,000 down to 3,000. That is a scary out bear market. This market, I just doesn't feel that way to me. I think it's going to probably refresh its open interest by wearing everyone out. And what I mean, just range bound frustration, no follow through. Every time we hit 70, we're going to break out of the range. Then we're going to fall back and test the lower end of the range. Maybe a bear market is starting. Maybe get enough people to believe that before it drifts back into the mid 60s. I don't mind the risk of that. The risk of so as you know, for my position, I probably have 25-30% less, than I had a few years ago, and I'm looking to get that back. But I don't think I'm in any hurry. I think this is a range bound affair. The risk being, if it does lift and start making new highs, then you're going to have to chase it. And nobody likes paying all-time highs to get their position back that they took profits on, right? $15,000 ago. That's the risk I'm taking, but I'm still comfortable. I'm looking range bound right now. And I'm looking to just get worn out by this.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are feeling the range bound. I got a question for you. I mean, we all shitcoins are a joke. We laugh at shitcoins. My keynote at BTC Prague was specifically about viewing the difference between Bitcoin and shitcoins through proof of work and understanding that shitcoins are just a digital illusion and that Bitcoin is an actual bearer instrument. So with that being said, I can't help but notice shitcoins just bleed against Bitcoin despite, the Solana, whatever, meme coin, Ethereum, ETF. What do you make of that? And on the back half of that, I was having dinner with Sailor, and he thinks that, like, for example, the death of stable coins is good for Bitcoin because a lot of that liquidity and that market activity would then go to Bitcoin. What do you make of the shitcoin Bitcoin dynamic and how these things trade against Bitcoin and how much of this industry would concentrate into Bitcoin if it were to collapse or if the world were to realize it's stupid or if a regulator were to ban it? What do you make of the crypto market?
Oh, I think I agree. I think when the dust settles, then brand new industry, right? 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, there probably will only be Bitcoin. And I mean, layer 2, as you know, Lightning Network pretty much obviated any need. There may have been reasons for altcoins, but not with Lightning Network, right? I mean, there's so much functionality, quicker settlement, and with Bitcoin as the base layer, all the innovation. If I'm innovating, right, I would not bother trying to create a new chain and try to get enough critical mass to sustain it. I would just build on top of layer 2. So no, I agree. I think altcoins are going to bleed out. And I have kind of already have, right? I don't know. I really don't watch, but I think there are exchanges that price all altcoins in Bitcoin, right? How many Bitcoin it take 0.0 of whatever Bitcoin it takes to buy a Litecoin or Ethereum. And I think those markets have all been pretty much one direction, right? Bitcoin is against everything else.
Yeah, because so the reason
I just don't see a reason for them, right? I mean, you guys are layer 2 guys. Is there anything that an altcoin can do?
I've said multiple times, I think that they're an arbitrage on the trend. They're a less legally accountable way to be your own central bank, and they're a regulatory arbitrage. And I'll get to the outside of the legal, but it's illegal in America to create your own money and pay Justin Bieber to tell retailers that it's the next evolution. You can't do that. And even excusing the SEC, it's just a way to print an asset and sell it to people. It's a scam. It's a classic scam. So no, there's no reason. There's never been a reason. I like the arbitrage on the trend though, because how do you monetize a new technology movement? I create my own version and convince unsuspecting people that don't know any better that it's the quicker, faster, smart contract version or whatever.
Right, the altcoin, the aspect altcoins originally, if you go back to like I think the first one I heard, like Tatiana, like a performer came out with their own coin. They're kind of like a frequent flyer mile or a buyer reward program type of thing. Like if you support my token, you'll get a first release on my trading insights or a first release on my record album. Right? It's kind of, and that is a way to brand.
It just doesn't need a blockchain.
Yeah, why would you need a shit?
Right. No, it would just put it on layer 2, right?
That's the arbitrage on the trend. You just put it in a database if you want. You could just set up an Amazon web server and put your tokens in that. But the arbitrage on the trend is, no, I'm using the blockchain and it's going to decentralize guitar. What'd you say? Guitar tokens or something. That's the scam. Is that and then you've got unsuspecting people that just read the Wall Street Journal or just scroll on TikTok and they're like, no, trust me. I know a lot about Solana. It's like, okay, well, I'm a technologist that's been in this space for 11 years, but sure, you know more than I do. That's the scam. But yeah, I can't help but ask because obviously the Ethereum ETF approval shocked everyone. Clearly, Biden. What I heard is that the White House felt the pressure of Trump and called Gensler and said sorry. And also, banks are making money, and so banks run the government. Politicians don't run the government, and so banks are making money. Biden thinks he's going to lose the election. And so they made the call, they approved the ETF, and there was this whole uproar of, I told you, Ethereum's the future. But priced against Bitcoin, it continues to just bleed. And Pomp made this comment to me where he said, if Saylor went on a ETH standard, he'd have more wealth than if he went on a Bitcoin standard. And I'm looking at a chart, and it's what a cherry-picked thing to say, because that happened to be like the local whatever price. Ethereum was in 2017, one Ethereum would get you 0.15 BTC. Today, one Ethereum will get you 0.05 BTC. So these things just bleed out against Bitcoin. But I don't know. I don't know how to understand their price action. I assume with more liquidity. So if we lower rates or we print a lot of money or we go to war or something, then like more liquidity just finds itself in everything. And so your eggs are going to go up and your Ethereum's going to go up, but they'll just never outperform Bitcoin. Is that the way you think about it?
I just think over long term, they're all going to trend down to zero against Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the innovation, and there's just no rationale for them. Right? Anything, quicker settlement times or other features or flexibilities are just easily built on layer 2 where you have more stability. Why would you not build on more stability? Right? Why would you try to reinvent the wheel when you've already got the 24/7?
And the thing that gets me is, if you guys want to invent new technologies, go for it. It's the second that you invent your own money is when I discredit you entirely and question you as an unethical scammer. If you want to decentralize something, great. Like Dorsey is working on Nostr that's decentralizing social media. Great. It doesn't have a token. The second that that's the thing about shitcoiners. They're like, I changed the world. How'd you do that? How do I get started and making my life better? Well, the first step is you buy my shitcoin. Like, well, now I think you're a scammer. So yeah.
I mean, the easiest way to do it, I always ask people, next time take a vacation somewhere international, right? Where you've got people flying in that are spending euros and yen and and dollars, etc. And then find out, ask yourself, what are all the local people doing? Because they're pretty quickly they'll probably give you a discount to accept dollars because those are readily available everywhere and hold their value. And they'll probably look for a way to pay their bills in whatever local island currency they're dealing with, right? Because that bleeds out against stronger currencies, right? So and then you multiply that on, I think that's kind of, the corporate balance sheet, equivalent of that. I want to put it on, I don't want to spend it. I don't want to, pay my rent with it, but I want it on my corporate balance sheet. Is just, I just think that the feedback mechanisms that support, that are accelerating right now. I mean, it's popping up on whether it's nation states, forward-thinking corporations. The stock market clearly rewards you if as a corporation you put Bitcoin on your balance sheet, right? What are the Semlar most recently? I can't remember. I might get this wrong, but I believe the last corporation that did what Saylor is doing, their stock went up 30%, something like that. I mean, the market rewards people that are integrating Bitcoin. Like I said, political candidates are looking to say positive things about it. I mean, the market's got a lot of momentum right now. I just worry, right? Like I said, it's a lot more comfortable to be bullish when the trade wasn't this crowded.
Yeah.
And how that resolves is I think it's going to be kind of a frustrating range bound, even though from a step back, I'd say this is probably the most bullish, market situation Bitcoin's been in years, right?
So on that one, let me ask you a question. I was with a gentleman in Prague. Won't directly quote him because I didn't ask if I could, but respected Bitcoiner. He said he gives it about a 30% chance that we've reached the high in this cycle because he has a non-zero concern, non-zero chance that the overall economy is going to hit a pretty big recession. He's like, everything's just so overpriced. It's so astronomically priced that at some point the broader economy is going to have to correct itself like it did in 08, and Bitcoin's not going to survive that. It's going to come down like everything else, especially if it's a winner for people, then it's going to have to get sold. Controversy, or not controversy, the opposite of that, there's a gentleman that gave me the insight, and he said, talk about how risk is institutionalized nowadays at the just risk generally. I was gonna say the dollar or real estate. All risk is institutionalized, meaning that if Japan starts to falter in their currency, then we're gonna open a swap line because we can't afford them selling treasuries, right? Like if someone goes down, we're all going down. And they said that the S&P 500 is now officially institutionalized risk, and that there's no such thing as a recession in the S&P 500, because if the S&P 500 falls apart and has a 2-year bear market, then this whole fucking thing's coming down. And so that we're so far gone that the idea that we could have a recession might be lost on us, because what would that even look like? Recession where? Can't be in the S&P, can't be in real estate anymore. So where is it? Recession in what? And so those are competing ideas. So one guy thinks that we're going to have to continue to stimulate no matter what, especially in election year. And the other guy's like, well, this thing we might enter a recession and Bitcoin's going to have to take an ass kicking. I think I know where you sit on that, but what are your
what's nearest the icing on the cake? I put it this way. We have, in response to rising prices and inflationary pressures, the monetary authorities raised, the Fed funds rate by 2 quarter-point hikes, right? And tripped Signature Valley Bank, right? I think there's too much solvency risk, for monetary authorities to shoot for a 2 to 3% inflation target. And I think it's notable, if you've noticed, since the Fed made those 2 hikes and has backed off, what have you heard about inflation? It's Putin's price hike, it's the war in the Ukraine, it's supply chain issues, logistical problems, right? None of it sounds like, yeah, we got a 1970s style inflationary problem brewing here. After all, we've printed, trillions of dollars and mailed them out in the last few years. What did you guys expect to happen? But you never hear anything like that, right? You hear logistical issues or solvable temporary kick the can type of issues. I don't see, and election year, right, is just the extra icing on the cake, but I think there's just too much liquidity risk, and I'm not sure I'd do anything differently, right? What you really want, let's get that inflation number down to 2%. Who are you going to trip, right? I know, so a bear market in the stock market, like you said, yeah, there's a lot of 401ks, and there's a lot of leverage and a lot of insolvency risk versus what? Leaking out a little bit higher on your inflation number doesn't seem to cause much of a political cost. If it does, and when it does, it's typically double digits. Then now we're going to need some stronger medicine, because on double-digit inflation, I don't know, it's just an easier round number to figure out how badly you're getting taxed through the mismanagement of the monetary policy. So once you get to there, you might get some political backbone to solve the problem. But other than that, this is Putin's price hike. Sorry that you all got to pay 6 or 7% more for your milk, but we got supply chain issues. Whatever.
Okay. Well, let me ask a question. Well, I have 2 questions. I want you to explain to our listeners what it means that risk is institutionalized. I wouldn't expect someone that wasn't raised by you to totally understand that when they hear it. And then the other question I have is, assuming that we're correct and that they are just going to say, yeah, you know what? Who's counting anyway? What's the difference between 2% and 3%? And what do you want me to do? It's Putin's fault, or it's Ukraine's fault, or it's whatever, Israeli's fault or something. How are they going to explain a Bitcoin that goes to 500,000? Like, I still think that, as you know, Trump and Biden, they can all support it. But as soon as Bitcoin goes to 500,000 and everyone's eggs are twice as expensive, I think that Americans are going to be pretty pissed off. There's going to be a lot of new wealth created and a lot of people that are going to feel like they got scammed. And I don't know how the US government is going to explain that. We kind of talked about this yesterday on the phone. So I don't know. Those are my two questions. Sorry, I'm not a professional interview. I'm no Peter McCormick, so I probably should have asked you one at a time. But which one do you want to answer first?
I don't think I think that monetary authorities are getting away with tolerating higher inflation numbers because their populations are buying the excuses, right? I don't know. You tell me what are your number one political issues heading into election season? Build a wall, right? I mean, they're pretty much, but I don't think people are talking about we're really going to need, well, sometimes, but we're going to need to shake up, right, the monetary authorities and reset our priorities and balance our budget. I just don't think you're going to hear a lot of that. I think people are pretty tolerant of and are willing to buy the short-term logistic type excuses that are being offered for price inflation.
100%. I agree.
It also helps, that the stock market's up. I mean, you really
know about that.
What?
Okay. It could be true. I wouldn't consider myself like a political anything. But the thing, like, everyone's always, is Trump legit? Is this going to last? Is he really going to support this thing? I don't know. A version I could see is he does support it, because if you want tens of millions of votes in America nowadays, you could like Bitcoin, which is crazy. Think about the power Satoshi put in all of our hands. But then I think that if Bitcoin goes to 500K, he might get a lot of pushback of like, hey, what about you focus on the dollar a little bit, asshole? I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, we're all getting murdered out here, and all your crypto bros are the ones in the penthouses, and you want to protect the currency a little bit? Go fuck yourself. I could see that. How do you explain, like, if you're another gentleman in Bitcoin that is very well respected, but I will not quote directly because I didn't ask him. But another thing they said is, if you were to give Gensler any ounce of legitimacy, or, take his decision-making seriously at all, it would be under the idea that if you were to allow banks to custody and sell, like if JP Morgan were allowed to custody and sell Bitcoin to Apple and Meta and Google, then this thing's going to run away from you way too fast. And how's the government going to explain the fact that that this $1 million Bitcoin? I don't know. I just can't imagine. They're going to have to say something about it, right? Maybe.
Yeah, but isn't one of? But you're talking. Bitcoin could see those astronomical prices if it gets U.S. government support and acknowledgement, and like a candidate like Trump and Ramaswamy are talking, right? But isn't part of that plan for the government to operate kind of like El Salvador, to use some of our resources to mine our own? I'm telling you, last time during the dot-com boom, right around the year 2000, we actually balanced the federal budget deficit because Silicon Valley all went public and all paid tons of taxes. And that really is the most wonderful time to run a government, right? When you're flush, right? Then you can tackle projects without, risking higher interest rates and higher taxes and stuff. So the ability, if the U.S. really does go in and support and mines and does kind of El Salvador-ish types of things and puts Bitcoin on our government balance sheet, and then it rallies to 100 million, I don't think there's any haves and have not problems there. That's just a wonderful, well-run government, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the dream.
I know you're thinking like it's going to be pitchforks. I've heard that argument, but here the argument since we got to Bitcoin. I just don't buy it.
Well, I don't buy it as much anymore. I think the dream at this point is that when Bitcoin does go to 500K, that Trump's like, I told you so. And God, aren't I great? And isn't Biden such a piece of shit? So I do think that that's the hopeful outcome, and maybe it's the probable outcome at this point. But at one point, like if Biden was so hard on Bitcoin and Bitcoin did rally to 300K, because it's going to rally no matter what. It's too far gone. I think maybe government can influence the timing of it. Like maybe it takes longer if they point guns at our heads versus if they embrace it. But if it happened while Biden was acting the way he was acting, he'd have a lot of explaining to do of like, hey, dude, what the fuck is going on with our currency when this thing's just running to the moon? But maybe Trump's going to take credit for it. Anyway, I don't know.
Well, would you
It's
still
fun to watch though, isn't it? Because how it's going to insinuate, right? That's the whole universal acid thought experiment. It's going to eat into anything it touches, but it's not really clear what that's going to look like, right? Is it going to go straight? Are we going to flip a switch at El Salvador? Is it going to route around obstacles like Jamie Dimon? Is one party going to use it, right, for political expediency? And how it's going to happen is going to be interesting, but it's going to eat into it. It already is. It's on the debate stage for a U.S. presidential election, and you did not see that coming, right? When as recently, 6-8 years ago, governments were talking about banning it, and now, right, we have a political party supporting it, raising money with it.
And that's the thing too, is, we try and explain this to our friends, or it's just, this thing just surprises you, in unbelievable ways. One day you wake up and you're on the wrong side of history.
Right.
Sorry, I'm looking at Dylan's facial expressions. I think I've cut him off too many times. What were you gonna say, Dylan?
Oh no, all good. I was curious if you felt or thought the same way. If first of all, a lot of the wealth that Bitcoin creates centralizes for U.S. citizens. And two, I think another interesting data point would be that the demographic of Bitcoin holders, like as a wealth transfer mechanism, I just think it'd be interesting to see what, I don't know, quote unquote unrest would look like if a lot of the value that Bitcoin creates centralizes in America, and then additionally to that, the demographic of the wealth transfer itself, because like Bitcoin holders tend to skew younger in population, in age. So I don't know.
Didn't Andreas used to say things like, as to that objection, like Bitcoin is supposed to be this democracy of access to wealth, but yet it's going to be really a very narrow portion of the population is going to, is going to get long it before the rest figure it out. And didn't he always used to say, I can't remember who I'm borrowing this from, but he used to draw the distinction between distributing wealth, which you don't want, right? Those communist socialism doesn't work. Distributing the actual wealth, or just what Bitcoin accomplishes is it fairly distributes access to wealth, right? Everybody now can get it, where you cannot get in on an initial public, on the Facebook initial public offering, right? Unless you live down the hall, right, at Harvard, and you had inside, or you had a friend of a friend or somebody, you cannot get in on these early public offerings. But you can for Bitcoin. Anybody can, and you don't even need money, right? Anybody can plug something in and start stacking. So right, it is not going to turn out a democratic distribution, but that's not what's important. The access is going to, I think, gives Bitcoin that fairness quality that is not going to be divisive.
I agree. Want to explain what institutionalized risk means to the listeners?
Oh, well, yeah, that's like the Powell, often like you hear quipped as a put option, right? It's a fail safe. You've got a backup. If something blows up in the Ukraine or something comes, that there is you hear, like, what do you call it? Plunge protection team. I remember this started like years ago. It starts with just like job owning. There'd be a bad disruption in the market, or we hit a circuit breaker or something, and Alan Greenspan would hit the wires saying markets are functioning properly, circuit breakers are performing their role, and we are monitoring the situation and ensuring stability. Boom. Okay, you didn't have to intervene, but you told everybody, I'm watching. You guys might want to stop selling because you're going to sell the low of the day right now because I'm about ready to end this. But markets usually get the job owning message. I think, that's kind of the stage we're at right now. It's kind of job owning our inflation and trying to, kick the can a bit. And I just, if and when that blows up, I think, like I said, if it takes some type of mini stock market crash, I just don't think authorities are going to let that happen. I don't think that an economy, that prints its own currency can fall victim to the type of insolvency risks and bank lines. I just don't think that's a possibility. I think rather it's going to be just going to inflate the problem away rather than there's too much rather than risk insolvency and how that dominoes.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think that people appreciate.
Did I answer? I'm sorry. I know you're trying to, like, what do you mean the institutional put or the support, or what would monetary authorities do? I'd say it will start with that job owning. Like I said, you'll get the shot. You'll get Powell admitted that he's watching. He is less concerned about the transitory inflation numbers and more concerned, about the GDP numbers. Okay, got it. Now we got your attention. Market doesn't need to sell off any longer is kind of how that Powell put would manifest, right?
Yeah, and in just more the idea that there's no such thing as the stock market crashing. The stock market crashing is everything going down. Like, that's when Japan recently started having trouble with their currencies. We woke up one day and they didn't have any more trouble. And you're like, well, how'd that happen? Well, the US opened what they called a swap line. And effectively what that was is printing dollars for them to use. Why? Because they didn't want Japan selling their treasuries. The whole world's collateralized against the US's debt. And so if you find yourself in a situation where you're like, oh shit, my currency's in trouble, then you got to sell the US debt, and then the US falls apart. And so we're going to do everything we can to make sure that no one sells that. So if the stock market goes down and you got pensions and stuff, they're like, oh, fuck, we got to now sell the bonds or whatever that we got, our bond portfolio. Then the US falls apart. If real estate goes down, if the Japanese yen goes down, if the Chinese yuan goes down, if the euro goes down, if anything goes down, then the whole house of cards comes down. So that's what it means when it's institutionalized. And so then the only way out is to print your way out, is the point.
$1 trillion coin, that was a popular idea for a while. Asset sales, tell you what, we cannot service this debt with y'all any longer, and you guys don't want us debasing our currency anymore. We'll tell you what, we'll give you the Yankees and the Statue of Liberty and call it even, right? We'll start selling assets. You guys want to buy Hawaii, right? And other than that, because we cannot service this debt, y'all, or we're just going to continue to trash our currency, right? Because we're not going to solve this problem through taxation. And default, like I said, we tried a little monetary austerity earlier, and that did not work out. So I think the clear path is inflation. And I think Satoshi told you that as clearly as possible, that monetary authorities just have a terrible time protecting the purchase power of their currencies. There's too much expedient political tug, to print your way out of your problems, and thus his deflationary rate is just a better answer. But I don't mind gold. I don't mind real estate, which is rare for me to say, right? Because those, gold has an unknown quantity, and real estate has, taxation problems, and but any hard assets looks, I think, like I said, I'm hardly can't even blame monetary authorities for allowing their inflation target to leak a little higher, because I think the insolvency risk is too severe right now.
Yep. I guess maybe the last topic you kind of brought up, Satoshi. So in my keynote for Prague, it's about proof of work effectively, and why Bitcoin is the only real quote unquote cryptocurrency and the only innovation. And I spent so much time going through, I don't know, the origins of Bitcoin and how it was created, and using Hashcash and Atom Back and proof of work, and a lot of the architectural decisions Satoshi made. And I've done this many times, and it's always fun to go down the rabbit hole again and pull up old artifacts and stuff. But it was the first time I'd ever done it with Dylan. And I got to watch Dylan grow a conceptual understanding of what Satoshi actually invented. And it's always fun watching people go down that. So I would have a question for you, Dylan. What's your renewed opinion on what Satoshi invented? And what's the difference between 2 weeks ago and today?
I mean, for me personally, it feels like I've been in Bitcoin as in owned it, but since 2016, and up until 5 days ago, felt like that was the first time I'd ever actually understood it. It made me feel like so much more of a Bitcoiner, and also gave me just a newfound respect for what they were able to accomplish. I mean, the sheer cognitive ability to put together 30 years of cryptographic iterations and have them amalgamate into this one project. Whoever that person was, I mean, that's got to be the smartest human being on planet Earth to be able to figure this out, and to be able to figure it out in an unbreakable kind of way. I mean, we were at dinner with someone who spent 2 years of their life trying to break Bitcoin at the protocol level and failed. And once they realized 2 years in that it was not possible, they, fully became a Bitcoiner, and fully dove down the rabbit hole, so to speak. But to me, I mean, it's I don't want to sound all hit the bong, but it was a very spiritual experience for me personally. I've at times felt like an immense amount of joy. At times I felt like I was losing my mind a bit, just because I can't fathom that a human being was able to figure this out, and then not only figure it out, but give it to us and then leave.
That's the wildest part.
It's the wild. I mean,
but that's the only way you could get the distribution. If he'd
but that combination of intelligence, and humility, one tends to go with another. I mean, human beings tend to be great at certain things, but really when you unpack that, it's because they're deficient in some sort of other way. And not that this person was perfect, but the idea of this person is completely and 100% unequivocally perfect. It's like the purest form of humanity in a project I've ever seen in my entire life. And it really gives you hope that, people like that exist and will continue to exist and will forever exist as long as we do. So yeah, for me, like I said, it was an incredibly profound thing to do. And I had my mind blown serially, as Jack can allude to. I had to take a break for a second. And just
which part blew your mind the most? I think it was understanding how he used proof of work, or
it was understanding the iteration from proof of work to what Bitcoin uses, which is to say that he took a function, this hash cost function of proof of work, and applied this difficulty adjustment to it. And what that difficulty adjustment allows for is essentially for blocks to programmatically be mined every 10 minutes. And that simple notion is what locks Bitcoin in time forever. As soon as the project is released, that simple thing is what locks Bitcoin. Whether one person's interested or 2 billion people are interested, no matter what, Bitcoin's monetary policy is fixed and stuck in time forever because of that difficulty adjusted hash cost function that Satoshi took Adam Back's work on and then iterated, built, released, and left. That to me was mind blowing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, everyone should, I read the white paper fairly often. Everyone should, I think. Even looking at this, I have it pulled up now. The references. So Satoshi references time. 3 of the 8 references are about time. Then references Adam Back's hash cash. So I've done 2 keynotes recently. One was about how Bitcoin solved for time. This one's about proof of work. Should really go back and read it. It's pretty unbelievable, to be honest.
Well, I think I like the last one I watched of yours. You talked about the finding a way. You have to find a way for a virtual currency to tether to the real world. If not, right, then it.
Oh, that's the Prague one. Wait till that one comes out. I think it's the best one I've ever done outside of obviously.
I know, and people say, "Well, isn't that wasteful?" And I mean, you're just plugging shit in and looking for hashes. Does not sound. It sounds very energy wasteful. But I believe you've answered that, and Satoshi was agreeable to that. He just said, I can't find another way to tether it other than wasting energy, right? For if you guys want to call it that. I mean, we don't think it's Bitcoiners don't think that's waste. We think that's as economically as you can produce, right? Sound money. But whatever, if you want to, it does use a lot of energy in a seemingly random, hunt. But I think Satoshi was very clear about that. He agreed. He is reluctant, but you have to tether a virtual product to a real world, function like energy, a real world.
Yeah, well, that was you guys should watch my keynote and let me know what you think when it comes out. I think it comes out either tomorrow or Wednesday. But the whole keynote is based on, I used the movie The Matrix. You know the scene in The Matrix where the monk tells Neo there is no spoon? He's like, the monk is like, there is no spoon. You can bend the spoon if you realize there is no spoon, and the only thing that bends is you. And the whole point is that, the virtual world is an abstraction. Like we're all looking at each other through a screen. So you're not actually looking at the physical me. You're looking at an abstraction of me. And from what you know about the house and me, you think I'm in this room, but you don't actually know that I'm in this room, right? Like it's all an abstraction. And Adam Back was able to take, and in that abstraction, by the way, we treat things as if they're real to make it easier on our minds for what technology has created. Like we call a folder, but there's no folder. Like a computer is just a state machine. A folder, a file, a poke, a retweet. None of these things are real. There's no actual fucking folder. There's that quote, the menu is not the meal, right? Like the picture of the ribeye is not the ribeye. But then what Adam Back did, the genius of what Adam Back did is he took a real thing and he turned it into a digital abstraction. So usually we have these digital abstractions like a folder on your computer and we call them a folder even though they're not a fucking folder. Adam created a computer program that took energy from the universe and turned it into a digital abstraction. So he did the reverse of what we were doing.
Wow.
And then the talk ends up talking about, we use physical power to protect our wealth today. Like all of our wealth is in real estate, land, equities, gold, oil. We use physical power like the military to protect that. So we do use energy. We use a lot of energy. Unfortunately, physical power, it's energy intensive and it's dangerous, right? Like the physical power we use to protect our wealth today is dangerous. It often results in human blood. But you got to do what you got to do to protect property. There's abstract power, which is like Zuckerberg has abstract power. Zuckerberg never has physical power over you. Zuckerberg's never punched me in the face, but he has the power to change the way I think about things, the way I get information. So there's difference between abstract power, physical power. Satoshi was able to take Adam Back's computer program that takes a physical thing and makes it virtual and integrate it into a digital money so that you're using physical constraints and physical power to defend the ledger. So the question is, if you're going to have a digital token, how the fuck are you going to keep track of it on a digital ledger? Okay, if you're going to have a digital ledger, then who gets authority to maintain it? Who gets to store it, right? Whoever gets to store it has a lot of abstract power. That's the new Mark Zuckerberg. Well, everyone gets to store it. Oh, wow, that's an innovative idea. Okay, that's cool. Well, who gets to write to it? Who gets to update it? Only the person that solves the hash cost function. Only the person that takes real physical energy from the universe and contributes it into the digital abstract ledger. That's the person who gets to update the ledger. And then the question is, well, what if someone attacks us? Well, we are able to summon as much real physical energy as we possibly can to defend ourselves because we're tethered to the real world. The analogy I drew in the presentation is Hitler. Hitler tried to 51% attack humans. And it didn't work because the good faith actors of humanity were able to summon enough physical power to defend ourselves and thwart off a 51% attack from a malicious actor in Hitler, right? And so it's the same thing, is that Satoshi created a thing, but the Bitcoin's physical power is electric. It's not kinetic, right? And so that it doesn't involve human blood. It is physical and it is real, but it isn't a gun. And so it's actually far safer. And so instead of, this is the Jason Lowry ideas, instead of wasting human lives protecting property, it's worth the electricity bill. What if we demonetized real estate and equities and oil and gold and we put it into this Bitcoin thing and we protected our stored wealth with an electricity bill instead of human blood? It's not a waste. It's an interesting keynote, but it is an unbelievable invention, and it's just like a far safer way to protect property with physical power, with real world assets.
That is fascinating.
Cool.
Yeah, one other thing I was going to, don't let me forget, did you know that where you grew up and when you grew up during the Obama years, that Evanston, or that voting district, was the most lopsided in the nation? I know Obama's Chicagoan, and that is a Democratic city. I mean, Mayor Daley, and it was a Democratic machine city, so it's not surprising that he would carry it. But it was, I remember notably that was the most lopsided liberal district during when Obama's on the ballot. I'm be interested to see even how many votes turn on the Bitcoin issue. If one campaign, right, if Republicans are going to accept Bitcoin, integrate it into the commodity, take it for campaign donations, and right, the other side is still Gensler, Warren, and everything. I wonder if you can even put a dent in a place like Evanston. I just wonder how much of a voting block it is.
We'll
if we can turn, right, some of those traditionally more democratic places with just pro Bitcoin, then I have no idea what's stopping the Democrats then from embracing it also, right? It's free. There's no pushback.
Surely they'll have to.
Mad at you. What?
Surely, because the game theory, they'll have to.
Yeah, but why haven't they yet? Why don't you just let Ross out? Who gets mad at you? Whose vote do you lose? Shit, you're going to lose the rest of the people who haven't been pardoned for, horrible sentencing crimes. I mean, I don't know that, but that you would clearly send a message to the Bitcoin community that you are taking them seriously, right? I mean, every Bitcoin convention recently just has free Roth signs, just an ocean of free Roth signs. Okay, let them out. Done. Now I'm at least listening to you guys, and not this nonsense. I'm gonna convene some type of Bitcoin roundtable to educate the White House policymakers. That sounds,
I think there's
right. That sounds like pretty much the most meaningless thing. But a pardon, I think that would go a long way.
I think there's plenty of people that on the right-wing Republican voting base wouldn't be like the most thrilled about the Ross thing if I had to take the other side. I think most people would be fine and understanding of it, but I don't know, the like war on drugs, marijuana's bad, should still be illegal group. I don't know. I think there's some people.
Both candidates, right, have a similar to Ross aged son who has either drug problems, legal problems, right? Doesn't I mean, obviously Hunter, but doesn't Trump also have a child that's fighting some type of bribery scandal or something? Hey, they were kids, they're 20s. We did our best, and I'm sure Lynn Ulbricht did her best to keep everybody on the straight and narrow too. 11 years is enough. I don't see who is mad at that message. I'm a dad too. All right, I'm Joe Biden. I'm Donald Trump. I'm Lynn Ulbricht. We all, it's dangerous out there. Drug laws in this country are haphazard, right? We're legal in Colorado, we'll get you a life sentence, right? And in other states. Let's first things first. Ross Ulbricht's sentence is a wild miscarriage of sentencing unjustice. He's let him out now, and now at least the Bitcoin community will take me more seriously and engage with me. I still wouldn't be enough to flip your vote, maybe, but at least we know you're listening to us.
Yeah, I agree with that point.
Why not? What's the drawback? Who gets mad? Like you said, the district attorneys union, right, that works so hard to put people away for life is going to get, I'm going to lose that guy's vote. I just don't see who, right? I don't see who's on the law and order side of that issue.
Yeah, I agree with that point.
I also agree. We'll just have to wait and see. Why has Biden not done what he probably should do? I don't know. He's incompetent. He can't see straight. I have no idea. I didn't know that. Watching Biden has been one of the most eye-opening things because he's barely alive. I just can't believe that someone who's barely alive gets to run one of the most important. I don't know. I don't know to answer your question, but I agree.
Yeah, but think about, the end of Reagan's second term was maybe not this bad, but when the stock market crashed in 87, okay, so Reagan, that's the end of his second term, right? He's 80 to 84 and 84 to 88. So fall of 87, he is lame duck as it gets, right? And his response was hardly inspiring, right? It was almost like Herbert Hoover redux. He was, markets are strong. Like, yeah, but they're not. We've got a problem here. We didn't have the circuit breakers. And so I understand, but Reagan was able to gracefully exit. Nobody has bad memories. I don't know why a doddering, figureheady guy at the end of his term was fine. We were fine with that in the 80s. But with Biden, it just feels like maybe it's the Gensler-Warren, maybe it's those who surround him, that if he gets too doddery, right, your financial markets are being offloaded to Liz Warren and Gary Gensler and Jamie Dimon, and they do not like our industry. I don't know, maybe that's why it's a difference, but I don't think doddery is actually that bad because, like I said, Reagan had a very successful and very doddery second term. No, I think the danger with it, the danger is right, is Warren Gensler stuff. You can be, I don't mind if he wants to tune out and coast his way through a second term, and just do not turn our industry over, right, to Gary Gensler and Liz Warren and Jamie Dimon is the problem.
Yep. Yeah. I'm just so far off from politics to be
I know politics. That's why you get into Bitcoin. That's why you get into trading, right? So you don't have to worry about
I just can't believe that this is how the world works. I guess you raised me in a way that I thought about, markets, and I was always a competitor and innovator and entrepreneur and stuff. I never considered politics or being a politician or like cared about any of that shit. But as you get older, obviously it becomes more important in some aspect of your life. And it's hard for me to believe that the world has worked this way for this long and continues to. I just can't believe it. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe that's an interesting place to end it. That's why we buy Bitcoin. That's my vote. Do we have any Q&A questions, Dill?
Yes.
Well, there's one for my dad that I think was pretty funny. Well,
yeah, so did I.
Be funny.
So did I. Let's get to it. Question for you, Bill, from Matthew Morey. Matthew wants to know, do you use indicators like RSI, Bollinger Bands, Mayer Multiple, or similar to make stacking or trading decisions?
No, I don't. I think that's a good, I think it's a good place to start because everybody uses those indicators kind of as a starting point. And, like I always said, speculation is a zero-sum game. There can't be a way to do it. If there were a way to do it, we'd all do it that way, right? And who would we trade with? There has to, and so I've never really understood why people want to approach a market by a zero-sum game market by doing what everybody else does. It just, I think it's even if, like, I had traders, as you know, as a discount firm, we had thousands of traders, but I had traders that, occasionally this guy's got a nice winning streak. Winning traders typically know other winning traders. So, I'd reach out and I'd hear the looniest things for why you got long that or why but the one thing that was always consistent was risk management. If you take risk management seriously, then you can trade with Bollinger Bands or support resistance levels and RSI indicators, which I do not for the reasons stated. I don't because everybody else does. And why do you want to do it what everybody else does? You have to take money from everyone else in a zero-sum game. But I understand. I just said, like, why do you guys want to approach that by doing what everybody else does? There isn't a way to speculate like there's a way to run a successful podcast. And if you run one, there will be one more in the world, right? But speculation isn't like that. I can't do what everybody else is doing and therefore increase the size of the pie. It's zero sum. So all of those indicators, just TLDR it. That you're doing what everybody else is doing, and that's not a way to beat a zero sum game.
Yeah, I mean, I've known how you've traded, so seeing that question was hilarious. But yeah, I think I agree with that. Obviously, okay. Oh, jeez, choking on myself. I've been on so many fucking airplanes in the last few days. Any other questions still? No? All right. Well, next week we'll have Cookie back and the keynote will be out. And we'll maybe do more of a reflection on our trip. But this one was awesome. What'd you say?
No, we'll fill some dead time, but if we don't get any fun moves in the market, we are also going to get countdown to Caleb Williams for the Chicago Bears. I should have worn my Caleb jersey. We're going to get the Olympics. All right, there should be some. If we don't get fun markets, we should get some fun drama coming up.
Where is the Olympics? France, right?
Paris. Yes.
Paris isn't crowded enough. Let's put it in. Yeah, that's good.
It's so hard to explain to the Olympics to your generation because during the Cold War, I mean, that was a must see as the Super Bowl. I mean, that was, we were going up against the Russians and counting and medal count and everything. It was a lot more fun. Now it is a lot more watered down, but I think it's still must watch TV, right? We got to watch that. And we certainly, as you know, as a Chicago Bear fan, you love your exciting quarterbacks, right? Unless you're old enough to remember Sid Luckman, you've never seen it. Right? Jim McMahon was always concussed, But now we got Caleb Williams, right? Doesn't he have sprinter speed and a gun? And
Yep.
so we got some things to look forward to, even if we don't get a bull run.
No, we'll get one.
We'll get them both.
Is like September-ish, maybe a little bit more sideways. And yeah, this will be the best Bears quarterback in franchise history, which isn't saying much, but I'm here for it.
Right? It isn't saying much.
It isn't saying much to if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan. I guess you go fuck yourself, but I'm not. So I get to be excited about Caleb Williams. And summertime shy, the weather, it's 90 degrees in Chicago today. Get to go.
That's good. I know I think I am sitting in the nicest place in the country right now, and it's 78. That's about as hot as it gets, right?
But you don't get to brag about that because not everyone gets to live there. So for Chicago, I'll take 90 degrees over 20 degrees any day. But yeah, and if you guys obviously questions, comments, any feedback for us, let us know. We try and read all the questions and the ones we think are fun. We ask live on air. So appreciate all the support. And I don't know if either of you two have anything to sign off with, but probably wrap up. No? Cool.
No, I'm fine.
Don't get paid. Keep your hands off the computer. Log out of your account. Go sit in the sun if you're fortunate enough to go to California by the ocean.
And like I told you, and I know I'm talking to somebody from the most democratic voting district in the country, but I think we got to start. Bitcoiners got to register to vote, and we got to be heard on this one.
Yep.
This industry. I mean, Bitcoin's obviously global, and whether Coinbase can domicile in this country or not is not that crucial to the price of Bitcoin. But for the health of the industry and all the six-figure jobs it creates, yeah, I'm planning on voting. I would encourage everybody to get off the fence.
Yep, agree. Cool. All right. Well, we'll talk to you guys next week.
All right, guys.
There is no spoon.